Howdy, folks. Today, Away with Words takes a trip up into the wide blue yonder. Talks turkey about the origins of hooch, finds out why Francis Gum never made it big in the movies, and if you think all that is strictly for the birds, that's okay by me, because there's more to make-believe than meets the eye.
I'll be the judge of that.
Rockman, you startled me.
That's me.
No. I'll be the judge of that.
No,
Judge Dredd.
No, I'll be the judge of that.
I'll tell you what, I'll leave you boys to fight it out between yourselves.
I'll be the judge of that. Oh!
Hey now, say now, let's get away now. Away with words. Words like we say each and every day. Away with words. What's in a name? What do you say? So many words at the end of the day. I talk, you talk, they talk, we all talk. Away with words. Away with words. Away.
They say travel broadens the mind, but it also enriches the vocabulary. Today, Away with Words looks at how the English language went across the Atlantic to America by sea and then returned over 300 years later in aircraft just like these, bringing Americans with new words from the New World.
These American planes are part of the Duxford fighter collection. Many words and phrases we now take for granted were brought here by the American forces and are now part and parcel of the English language.
Catch-22 comes from Joseph Heller's book of the same name, all about a bombardier in the US Air Force in World War II. He wanted to go home, but the only way you could get off active duty was to be proven insane. But if you claimed that flying over hostile territory day after day was very, very dangerous and it made you terrified and do crazy things, then you were told that was a completely sane response. Jeep comes from the letters GP. No, not a doctor. It stands for General Purpose. GP. GP. But I can't imagine some tough Marine saying, hey, where's my GP? So they obviously shortened it to Jeep. Much more butch. Oh. In terms of human development, it's not so long ago that flying was strictly for the birds. This American expression, meaning of little or no consequence, has surprisingly nothing to do with flying. It refers to small scraps or crumbs fit for only small birds to pick over. So let's go and meet some bigger birds, birds of much more consequence, birds of prey. This is Audley End in Saffron Walden, and here is Ray and Wendy Alliker of Ye Olde red-tailed falconry display. Can we introduce these two now?
These are the two males. That's Catan and Sonny.
Catan and Sonny.
And that's Sonny at the inside.
They don't
here.
make records, do they?
No, not Sonny.
Like a singing duo. What's this chap's name, or is it?
Well, this is a female.
Ah.
This is an adult female Lanner falcon, and the Lanner falcon comes from North Africa, and it is a desert falcon. It spends a lot of time in desert areas. And in medieval times, this bird would have been called a haggard bird. That would be the name for it. And because it is an adult female called a haggard, that is where old hag and hag for a lady has come from.
Right, a lot of people have heard the word to cadge. Isn't
yeah.
that a cadger?
Well, a cadger was the guy who carried the birds on like a bottomless box, basically, on two straps over his shoulder. Yeah. And as history said, he didn't get paid for carrying them. He cadged pennies from passers-by to look at the Royal Falcons.
What other well-known words come from falconry?
The Royal Mews. In London, the Royal Mews that people associate with stables actually were built for falcons. And the word Mews comes from the word mew, which is to molt, and it's where the birds were put to molt during their molting season.
Now, I never knew that. That's wonderful. I always assumed a mews was a stable.
A stable.
You missed it, yeah. The saying, wise as an owl, probably comes from the goddess of wisdom, Athene. Coins bearing her image often had an owl on the other side. But it's probably more true to say it's to do with their hunting habits. They sort of stooge around all day, wait till it's dark, all the little animals come out. They cruise around silently, pick up the easy one. You could say it's an owl's life, quite wise. Hawks are incredibly observant. Well, we've all heard of the expression, the eyes of a hawk. Not only have hawks influenced the tactics of fighter pilots, they've also inspired the names of many fighter planes, like the Sea Hawk, the Kitty Hawk. Incidentally, the Wright brothers flew their first contraption at a place called Kitty Hawk. But there's also the Sea Harrier and the Harrier jump jet. Well, far too numerous to mention. Okay is probably the most well-known piece of American slang, but there are many conflicting stories about where it comes from. They say before the white settlers arrived, they had a word okay, meaning may it be so. President Andrew Jackson was said to be not too good at spelling. In fact, he signed many documents OK, standing for all correct. So take your pick. Okay? But how did English get to America in the first place? In 1620, the Mayflower arrived in America with its small band of settlers. They were met by two Native Americans, Samoset and Tisquantum, who fortunately spoke English. Now that's not as strange as it may sound, because the last 120 years, European fishermen had been working the waters of East Coast America and had got on really well with the locals. In fact, if it hadn't been for their help, the Pilgrims would have perished, because they taught them how to plant corn and catch wildfowl. And talking of wildfowl, to talk turkey means to talk business, and the saying comes from an apocryphal story about a white man and an Indian who went hunting together. Between them, they managed to catch 5 birds, 3 crows and 2 turkeys. When they divided the catch, the white man gave the Indian a crow and took a turkey for himself. Then he gave the Indian a second crow and took the second turkey for himself. Finally, he gave the Indian the last crow. And when the Indian objected, the white man said, "Why, what's wrong? You have 3 birds, I only have 2. And the Indian replied, "Stop talking birds, talk turkey." There goes one. No good. Got away. All I got was a scratch on the nose. But why were Native Americans ever called Indians? Well, basically, Christopher Columbus got it very wrong. He thought, indeed he was convinced, he'd found another way to India. And he insisted that all the natives be called Indios or Indians. Indeed, he went so far as to threaten to cut out the tongue of any man who said otherwise. It's no wonder the name stuck. In 1790, there were over 4 million Americans, and 90% of them were descended from the English colonists, not forgetting the Scots and Irish, of course. And over the years, millions more people arrived from Europe. And at one time, It looked as though there'd be more German speakers than English, and there was talk of making German the national language. I suppose we ought to be grateful that the Americans chose English, but for some strange reason the English always go on and on about how American English is corrupting the mother tongue. Indeed, Oscar Wilde once said that America and England were two nations divided by a common language. But the truth is, words like fall for autumn and deck for pack of cards and trash for rubbish and the saying, I guess, were all common in Elizabethan English. Nowadays, of course, three things bring us closer together. The invention of the aeroplane, World War II, and of course, the movies. Join me in part 2 when Away with Words gets down to the real nitty-gritty. Hey, now that's what I call fast food. Finger looking good. Welcome back. Part 2 is all about contemporary American words and their effect on the English language. Apart from brand names like Coca-Cola, 7-Up and Maxwell House, they brought us the hamburger, the hot dog, gum and 10-pin bowling.
So I've come to Mildenhall US Air Force Base to meet some Americans. Oh dear, pathetic. I think I'd better talk to an expert.
I've tried my hand at 10-pin bowling, but I could do with a tip or two. I wasn't very good.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, send me some of the secrets.
Well, the main thing is get you a ball that's commensurate. I'm sorry. Make sure. Okay. Yeah. The best thing, right, is make sure you get a ball that you can handle. But there's two ways you can bowl. You can do what they call spot bowling by using the arrows, aiming for the arrows, or you can pin bowl and just aim towards the pin. Yeah. Some guys, they use a hook. Like, watch this guy. He uses somewhat of a hook.
I saw that, yeah. The only hook I've done is in a golf shot. Yeah.
Is that right?
Actually, I did a lot better with basketball.
Is that right, really? See, there's hooks in basketball as well, you know, how you throw the ball over your head like that.
Hi, I'm sitting on some bleachers in the fitness centre, watching some GIs having a practice game of basketball. We've all heard of GI, especially from GI Blues, which Elvis Presley suffered from. GI is short for government issue, and it's virtually anything that's government issue. Government issue shoes, government issue trucks, government issue haircut, government issue bride, although I'm not quite sure how that works, you know, GI bride, but GI is government issue. Oh, I say, good shot. Terrific, well done. You think I can have a pot at the basketball? Hey!
Well, all right, way to go. That was some doozy. But right now, it's time for me to shoot the breeze with some hog riders.
Hi, this is Don, and there's Ron, and we're going to talk about their wonderful machines here, the Harley Davidsons, because there's a lot of words connected with motorbikes, isn't there? Like chopper, hog, yeah. So where does chopper come from? Is that from just chopping the bike to pieces?
Basically, where it came from was back in the '60s. The guys would take their bikes and basically chop them to pieces. Taking the front fender, chopping off, putting it on the bike, extending the forks out, doing some wild things with gas tanks.
What about when you first came? Did you find it the English as opposed to the American English which you used to? Did you find it a bit odd?
It was very difficult. I remember my biggest challenge was taking directions from a realtor to try and find a house. So I could rent a house.
An estate agent.
An estate agent, yes.
But we have so many different words for most ordinary things, like I call these trousers.
call them pants.
Pants, and if I was wearing braces, you'd
Suspenders.
Suspenders.
Yes.
And you walk on a sidewalk, we walk on a pavement.
True. You go to a solicitor, I go to a lawyer.
Oh, yeah?
We go to the restroom, you go to the water closet or loo.
Or the toilet. Loo.
Loo.
I mean,
I'm like, I was sitting here going, Lou.
Is he here yet? So long! Adios! Cheerio! Of course, the main way Americans influenced language in Britain was through the cinema. And here we are at the movies.
Away with words, take one.
And I've borrowed John Goodman's car to have a look round Elstree Studios. Drive on. Well, it's not actually his car, it's the one he used in The Borrowers, so it's quite fitting that I'm borrowing it.
Moving pictures were invented simultaneously on both sides of the Atlantic.
If the Lumiere brothers invented cinema in Europe, it was Thomas Edison who pioneered and commercialized motion pictures in America. Motion pictures became shortened to movies. The first real movie, that is one with a storyline, was called The Great Train Robbery. It was made in 1905 by Edwin S. Porter, and it ran for 11 minutes and it had 14 scenes. It was also the first Western, or gun opera, as they were called in the early days. Brian, can I have a word?
Yes.
Here we are in the viewing theatre at Elstree Studios. What do they use the viewing theatre for, mainly?
Mainly it's for what we call a rushes. The rushes theatre, mainly.
And what are the rushes?
Well, the reason they're called rushes is that when they finish shooting on the stage for the day, the film is canned up and it's rushed to the processing theatre, and then from the processing theatre it's rushed to the cutting room, and then it's rushed to me. So therefore that's why we call it rushes, because it is one big rush.
Elstree Studios have been in operation since 1925, and Alfred Hitchcock was one of the first directors to use the place. He made the first British talkie here. It was called Blackmail. They also made the Dam Busters here. Well, not right here, because I'm standing in the tank. The tank that Warner Brothers made for the film Moby Dick. And it's pretty big. It can hold over 250,000 gallons of water and takes 4 days to fill. But it was here that Gregory Peck as Captain Ahab, strapped to the side of Moby Dick, beckoned the crew down into the deep. And over here, in this deeper part, is where Harrison Ford was almost sucked into the propellers of a ship in one of the Indiana Jones adventures. Of course, as you can see, it's just a car park now because they're building another studio back there.
Which is great news for Elstree and movie fans, for where would we be without the movies? We'd have to use our own imagination. This is the Weird and Wonderful Prop Store.
There are lots of sayings that come from American movies. Everyday sayings like, "You dirty rat." "Play it again, Sam." "Go ahead, make my day." "I am the law." You will put the moving background in afterwards, won't you? Promise? Okay. Of course, there are some people who say the movie business is one big fiddle. And I have a shower cubicle just like this at home.
Lots of new words have been coined to describe movies. Westerns, tearjerkers, weepies, horror.
Hollywood meant glamour, and some movie stars had to change their names. Rockman, you know a thing or two about movies, don't you? All right, well, can you tell me, who was Marion Morrison?
John Wayne.
Very good. Okay, Archie Leach.
Cary Grant.
Doris Kappelhoff.
Beautiful Miss Doris Day.
Bernard Schwartz.
Tony Curtis.
Okay, I bet you don't get this one. Isur Danielovich Dembski.
Bless you. Well, you'd have to be Kirk Douglas.
Congratulations, Rockman.
Thank
You
you.
win a handful of gravel.
Oh!
Don't mention it. That's all we can afford on our budget. Anyway, the only movie star who didn't change his name was Jimmy Stewart. Or should I say Major General James Stewart, Commander-in-Chief of the 8th Division of the USA Air Force.
What was it like in those days? I spoke to Woody, Griff and Eugene, who remember it well.
Did you have much to do with the American forces?
We had a fair amount to do because we landed sometimes on their airfields. Just to show them how it was done. You know.
Did you ever get down to the pubs together with the Americans and the British?
Yeah. In fact, in practically every pub round here, you'd find a little notice up aimed at the young women to safeguard them. They'd say, "Look before you jeep." Lest you get yanked off into maternity.
And of course, your Norfolk Gliding Club is right here at Tibenham Airfield, where James Stewart was based.
That's right.
Oh, yes.
And he's been back since. I've had the pleasure of meeting him when he was alive. He came back. In fact, he gives an annual award to the youngest first solo of the year.
Does he?
In this club, yeah.
And now, thrill of thrills, my first trip up in a glider with Woody right behind me.
And I think this is it. No hands. We're almost up to 2,000 feet. Everywhere looks like a patchwork quilt. I'm sure that's a cliche someone's used before. It is wonderful up here in the wide blue yonder. Or in this case today, the slightly grey, not terribly far yonder. But you can get high above the sidewalks or pavements, in duplex or semi-detached apartments and flats, the instalment plans or the hire purchase agreements, the restrooms or the toilets. Flying really is the stuff of dreams. So long. Bye, folks.
Hey now, say now, let's get away now. Away with words. Words like we say each and every day. Away with words. What's in a name? What do you say? So many words at the end of the day. I talk, you talk, they talk, we all talk. Away with words. Away with words.